In life's journey, we must seek to reflect, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Road to Rediscovery with your host, Aubrey Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on past life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, take it to the next level and help others who are struggling through dark times. My special guest is an author, a certified life coach, public speaker, and retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach. Multiple tragedies in her journey, including the death of her older brother when she was 12, has led her on a path in search of peace and happiness. She spent the past 20 years helping people transform their lives, doing the same. We're going to hear about her journey. Can't wait to hear it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be very resonating to all of the listeners out there. And we're also going to learn about her podcast, Happiness Solved, as well as her book, Happiness Solved, Climbing 100 Steps. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big welcome for Sandee Sgarlata. Hey, Sandee, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Aubrey. I wasn't expecting the applause.
Oh, well, there's a lot of people waiting to hear from you. They're very excited that you're on the show. Thank you so much for coming on here. Really, really appreciate it. So let's just go ahead and get started. If you can just share with the listeners, like, where you're from and what was life like for Sandee growing up?
So I was raised in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. It was kind of outside of Annapolis, Maryland. We had a house on the water, and, life was pretty good. I mean, it had its ups and downs. My biological father died when I was 18 months old, and my mother was left a widow with 4 children. And so that took us to Baltimore, Maryland, so she could be with her sister to help us with us kids. And then when I was 3 years old, she met and married the man who became my father. He raised me for 47 years of my life. And, he was a strict Catholic, no elbows on the table, but he taught me my manners and, wasn't allowed to leave the table till every little Brussels sprout was finished. And
right. Yeah.
but it was good. I mean, life was good. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. So let me ask you, what was your original thought or response when facing such a tragedy at a young age? The first time you experienced tragedy or were a part of it?
Well, that was when my older brother died. And the reason I have the tagline for my book, Climbing 100 Steps, is there was 100 steps that went from the river dock all the way up to our house. And I was called home early one day, and I was with my girlfriend, and we were at her family's home. It was a cottage home that was also on the Severn River, and it was quicker to bring me home by boat. So we were brought home by boat. We laughed and we were just, it was like a struggle to climb the steps, but it was so hard, and we were just laughing. And I get up to the top of the steps, and then I'm greeted by my father, who told me that my older brother, who was 19 years old, was killed. Well, we don't know if he was killed or if he fell out of a window. We don't know the circumstances. It was 1978. The U.S. Army did not do a thorough investigation like they would today. We were told he either fell out or he was pushed out. We don't know.
Gotcha.
But that was like being kicked in the stomach. And it taught me a lot of things. And unfortunately, I made up a few stories surrounding that circumstance. Because at the day of his funeral, my mother looked at him in the casket and said, "He doesn't look real." And I took that and ran with it and made up this story in my mind that he was not really dead. Okay, so instead of dealing with the grief and the loss, I pushed it down inside and I made up these stories like he was a spy for the U.S. government, and he could never come back to see us, or that he was in the witness protection program or something like that. And so that was a story I made up. But then the other side to that was that because I was so happy that day and that was just ripped away from me, I made up a story that I was not allowed to feel happiness in my life, because if I felt happy, something tragic was going to happen.
Oh, okay. I see.
And it took years of therapy to understand, because my therapist one day, she was like, "Well, since that day, has anything tragic happened?" And I'm like, "No, nothing's happened."
Yeah.
And so, and then I learned that I had like a form of PTSD, not like a war veteran would have, but there's different levels of PTSD. So I definitely had a level of, you know, a certain level form of PTSD. And the interesting thing, going back to that story I made up about my brother not really being dead, is every year, once or twice a year, I have a dream about him. And in my dream, I open up the door and he's standing there, and we have this wonderful reunion. You know, so that's the gift of that story, is that I feel like he visits me and I get to see him, and he's never aged. You know, he's always that young 19-year-old handsome man. He was 6'5", and, you know, but so yeah, that was a real turning point in my life. And because I didn't deal with the grief and the loss, because in the late 70s, early 80s, and even beyond, people, it was like taboo to go see a therapist. Like, you did not deal with it. And my mom, she did the best she could. She had, you know, four other kids to take care of. She had 5 kids. My little brother was born when I was 7. So, you know, so she had 4, and my little brother was only 6 at the time. So, you know, she had her hands full. She did the best she could.
Right. No, for sure. And you know, back then, you didn't hear terms like PTSD. You didn't hear, you know, terms like mental illness or that type of thing, you know. And my aunt, she committed suicide in 1982. And you know, she had a very strong mental illness, you know, and you know, was brought out of the home before she should have been. And so, again, long story, but anyhow, I know exactly where you're coming from, because that was a different time, right? That was a different generation. Our parents, old school, you know, things like seeing a psychiatrist or seeing counseling or getting counseling was all taboo, you know. And so that's a very interesting response that you've had at that age. It sounds twofold. Number one, you did an amount of repression, right? And then secondly, you almost, well, you convinced yourself that you can't be happy, because that means if you are, then something disappointing is going to happen. Right. So, so at some point, when did you have that defining moment where you started to realize, okay, I need to turn this around. I can turn this around. Um, was it part of the counseling, or how did you make that or come to that realization?
Because I ended up abusing cocaine for about 4 years.
Okay.
And I was never a drug user. I had tried marijuana, but I didn't really care for it. And it was interesting because cocaine had been introduced to me multiple times. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old that I had a weak moment and I tried it. Because part of the reason why my brother either fell out of the window or was pushed out is he was on a lot of drugs. He had taken a lot of pills, like downers. So I was like, never going to take pills, never going to do drugs. And I just had a weak moment, and I ended up abusing cocaine, and had to admit to my then fiance that, you know, I had a problem. And so that was when I went into recovery. I did like an outpatient recovery program. I didn't understand what addiction meant. So I was like, I'm not doing it. I don't need to go into a hospital. There's no big deal. And it really wasn't a big deal. You know, it was probably the first couple of days are hard. And then it was, you know, I did the counseling, and then I just started going into therapy. And so that was the turning point for me. And what happened was I just became obsessed with, I call myself, I'm a self-proclaimed self-help junkie because I couldn't, and even to this day, I mean, I just couldn't get enough of it. You know, I was just like this sponge, and I just wanted to learn. And I studied all sorts of religions, you know, because I call myself a recovering Catholic.
I love it.
I mean, you know, anybody, if that's your religion of choice, then more power to you. I just had that experience, so it just wasn't for me, you know. Because at the end of the day, you have to find what works for you. You have to find what's in your heart and what makes sense for you, and that's all that matters. It's all about what you want. And so so I've done so much studying and reading, and to almost, it was just, I guess that was how I kept up, or kept busy,
Yeah. 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 Keeping yourself occupied and so forth.
Yeah.
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 And becoming that self-help junkie, you know, uh, that sounds like it kind of lit the fuse, for your journey at that point, for the pursuit of peace and happiness. And so, in that quest to find and maintain, right? Not just find it, but also maintain it.
Yes.
Um, besides going to counseling and therapy and so forth,
Right.
and then rehabilitation and so forth, what types of changes or adjustments mentally did you have to do, or did you find yourself making as you went through life, trying to draw closer to peace and happiness?
Well, it comes down to what you do in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives are broken down into moments.
Yes.
And what do we do in that moment when our peace is disrupted?
Mm, gotcha.
It's not what happened, it's how we choose to react.
Yes.
So it comes down to, what do I need to do in this moment? Do I need to focus on gratitude? Is there somebody I need to forgive? Do I need to forgive myself? Do I need to, work on acceptance? Do I need to, there's just so many little things.
Right.
Am I creating a story in my mind about what happened? Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Because we do, I always use the example of being in traffic, because so often you're cut off.
Yes.
And you have two choices there. You can either get mad at the other person, which is what most people do. You're just like, "Arr."
Right. Yeah, they do.
Right?
Reactive. Yeah.
It's not exactly.
Yeah.
Or you can look at it a different way, and you can say, "Oh my gosh," right? Because we don't know why they almost hit you. We will
Right.
never know that, right?
No, that's right.
In a million years, unless you chase them down and talk
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're never going to know
No.
what happened. So instead of going down that rabbit hole, why don't you just say, "Wow, oh my gosh, I hope their child isn't in the hospital and they're just trying frantically to get there."
Right.
Or maybe they're sick and they need to just get home because they're about to throw up, or it could be anything.
Yeah.
Just name it.
No.
Whatever you can do to make up a new story so that you're not causing yourself so much, because I can't tell you how many times I have been down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
just forever, forever, forever. Okay, so I'm just going to pause just 2 seconds here, and I apologize.
Okay.
I have a son in college, and he is at his fraternity formal in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I just needed to send him money on Venmo. Done.
Oh, no,
Okay,
wonderful.
sorry,
No, that's fantastic. And trust me, Sandee.
Sorry, my kid comes first. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize at all.
Otherwise, he'd start calling me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
He's 20 years old. It's like, mom,
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
and then he'll start calling me. Pick up the phone, answer me. Like, okay.
Hey, 100%. I have a son in college too. And so I totally know what that's like. So no, it's all good. No problem.
He's my one and only. So,
Yeah, same here, one and only. So yeah, like you said, you'll never know why they ran you off the road, or
right.
got in front of you, cut you off. You'll never know what kind of day or what type of day they were having at that time, right? So, and like you said, they could be rushing to the hospital. They could be, in dire straits of something. So, and that brings up something that I wanted to ask regarding that. And I'm sorry I had it, but then I lost it. But that's okay. It'll come
No
back.
big deal. It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. So let me ask you this: do you feel that there's often a misconception in happiness being a destination? What is what's your take on that? Is happiness a destination, something that you're seeking, or what is happiness?
I think for many people, they think it is a destination, because they think that when I get that perfect job, I'm going to be happy. When I find that perfect person, I'll be happy. When I make more money, I'll be happy. When I get in
Yes.
that dream house, I'll be happy.
Yes.
So those are the people, if you're thinking like that, then it's a destination.
Okay.
But the reality of it is happiness is a choice, and you can choose to be happy every single day. Now,
Absolutely.
Granted, there's many things you probably have to work on, right? Because I think many times we're causing our own unhappiness because we're not taking care of ourselves. We're too stressed out.
Right.
We're holding on to resentments to other people, refusing to forgive because, if I forgive, I'm going to be letting that person off the hook.
Yeah.
Not about that.
Holding bitterness.
So we have all these ideas in our head, and we're causing our own misery 99% of the time, because even if somebody wronged you, yeah, they wronged you, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility because you own your feelings.
Yes. Yes.
You are the only person that can make yourself happy. Nobody else. And it took me years to figure that out, because everybody's going out here. You're reaching out here for all of these things, right?
Yeah.
Retail therapy.
Reach out therapy.
And it works temporarily and you feel great.
Right.
You get that credit card bill and you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah. I mean, then it felt like some form of self-medication or something. So
yeah.
But the true answer lies within, right?
It's always within you.
It's within. There's introspective, right? And then you learn the art of reframing, like you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Think of just change the perspective of the event or the circumstances, right?
Right.
And hopefully that changes your outlook or thought on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, even if let's just say you're bullied all the time and you're being bullied every single day. And I was bullied when I was a kid, so I know what it's like, and it was not fun. People hated my nose, this little turn up nose, and I just, I was the source of ridicule, and oh my gosh. So, and of course I wasn't in that frame of mind, so I wasn't even there where I could even forgive people. But let's just say you have an adult and you're being bullied or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody at work is giving you a hard time.
Yep, it happens.
Even if that's the case, and it's happening every day, you're still responsible for your happiness. You have a choice.
Yes.
Because you know what? If somebody's making fun of you, it's not about you. It's about them.
That's right. That's
their shit, not yours.
That's right. No, that's exactly right. And people naturally feel as if, whatever circumstances happen, it's about them. And I mean, whether there's vanity in it or not, someone can truly, honestly be a humble person and react to a circumstance as if it is about them. Like when someone says something derogatory towards them or does something to slight them, right? And so, that is, I guess, in a non-vain sense of thinking it's about you. So your feelings are hurt because they did this to you, when, like you said, by reframing, letting and considering that the problem is them. Okay. You did nothing. They came to you, they said this to you, they did this to you, and reframing it like that, knowing that, and helping us realize it's not about us in that case. It's really about them and their problem.
100%. But let's go back to that for a second, because I don't want anybody who's been through a lot, okay? Because there's so many situations and we can't.
That's true. We can't include them all.
But I still believe that no matter what it is, okay, and this is what I want to go back to.
Gotcha.
When you are wronged, it is so important to validate your feelings, because they are real. And you have to sit in those feelings and you have to go through the pain, because it's painful. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm in any way saying, oh, it's no big deal. It's about them, not you, because it is a big deal, because it hurts.
Yes.
So before you can get to a place of, reshaping it, to use your words, you have to still sit in it and deal with it. Because when my brother died, that was the big thing, was that I didn't deal with those feelings of grief. So until I sat through that, then I was able to get to a place where I could, reshape it.
Sure.
So when somebody is saying something nasty to you or whatever, It's real, and you have to feel those feelings 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it could take you a day, it could take a week, it could take you months. Whatever it takes, but I caution people, what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to keep reliving it over and over and over and not trying to get to the bottom of it.
No, that's right.
Because then you're just causing yourself, it's like self-torture if you do that. At some point you need to take the next step. Right.
No, for sure. And there's one element that you really emphasized and drove home, and I want the listeners to understand this as well. When we are practicing introspective, to try to come to the realization of where we are and be quite honest about it, and just accept the fact that I need to turn things around, I need to transform. You emphasized self accountability. That is hugely important, and I would imagine that in your working with people and your podcast as well as your book, there's the emphasis of self accountability that people need to realize, right?
Oh yeah. And in the book, I have a whole chapter that's dedicated to listing the different things that you're doing that are making you unhappy. Gotcha. And there's all sorts of reasons. There's all sorts of reasons and things that we're doing that we're causing our own misery. And we may not even realize it. Most of the time, it's how we're thinking. Okay. We're criticizing ourselves, we're criticizing others, we're judging others, we're beating ourselves up. Most of the time, it's what we're thinking that is causing us our pain and misery.
I tell you, man, the power of a thought.
Oh yeah.
Incredibly powerful. The power of a thought. And you may you may definitely know this word for word, and I don't know it word for word, but I've seen it. I've seen it hung and framed on doctors' office walls and so forth, and maybe even some friends' houses. But I don't even know where it begins with. I think it begins with like your thoughts manifest, or your thoughts become your beliefs become your actions, or your words become your actions become, and it goes on and on and on. Have you seen anything like that?
So I do talk about that, and I talk about it's your perspective.
Okay.
So if you're thinking a certain way, that's your perspective. Your perspective becomes your beliefs. Your beliefs becomes your reality. And then that drives your actions. But I'm not sure if it's in that order, but that's what makes sense to me. So
no, that makes perfect sense. No, I'm with you. Yeah.
But I do know exactly what you're talking about. But here's the thing. You can change your perspective at any time.
Yes.
Which means if you're shifting your perspective, you're going to shift your reality.
Yes.
So I use an example in my book. Well, one, me and my siblings were raised by the same parents. We all have a completely different perspective of what our childhood was like.
Right.
Now, for me and my little brother, it was very different because I moved out of the house when he was 12. So he was like an only child. So it was very different for him.
Sure.
And I'd be like, you're giving him a credit card to go buy shoes? Like, you never gave me your credit card.
Right.
But I use the example of, you have two people that report to the same boss.
Yes.
Okay. And the boss wants them to stay after work to finish a project. The one person gets all upset because they have to stay late and it's ruining, their plans or whatever. The other person sees it as an opportunity to shine.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, my superpower is I always have another way of seeing everything.
Yes.
Because there really is, but it's hard because somebody will, they're telling me this. I'm like, oh yeah. And then, oh yeah. Especially when it's like the presidential debates, I'm like, good point.
Right. Oh, that's a good point too.
I'm like, I don't know. Right?
They're all good points.
They are good points. Right? But, so that's kind of, so if you're able to shift that perspective, it will shift your reality, because your perception is like the lens that you're looking through. That's how you're seeing the world.
Yes.
But many times we're doing this. It's like we have blinders on and we're only seeing what's in front of us. Not realizing that, there's lots of other ways you can see it.
Yes, no, for sure. And with the employee example that you just mentioned, Sandee, that's spot on. I'm in lockstep with you and understand exactly where you're coming from with there, right? Because those two different thoughts in contrast, right? Their thoughts and their feelings obviously is going to yield their respective actions and their respective results, right? So so that totally makes sense on how the power of a thought can drive such a domino effect of consequences.
Success or failure.
Yeah, success or failure for sure. So in your work with many different people, helping them realize their true happiness, their worth, helping them find their peace. Um, what are some of the indicators that gives you as a coach, the notion or the confirmation, I guess you can say, of someone you're working with is they're drawing closer to peace and happiness. They're drawing closer, or they're getting it. What are some of those indicators?
Well, it would probably be that they told me about a situation that they had where prior to working with me, they would have reacted this way. And now, while it still may have caused them some level of angst, because that's okay, they were able to use the tools that I talk about in my book and the tools that I teach people, how to get back to a place of peace and happiness much quicker. Because I'll tell you, and I even say this in my book, I get upset. I'm married to a man. He pisses me off all the time. Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm human. I mean, we all do it. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. No. Sure. There's times when somebody wants to cut me off, and in my 20s, I may have followed them or jumped out of my car at the stop sign and walked up to them, and
Right. Yeah.
And now, you have that knee-jerk reaction, but it's what you do with it afterwards. Okay. And I'm more self-aware, and I recognize it. I'm like, okay. And I take a deep breath, and I don't let it affect my peace and happiness for a very, it's just very short period of time. And there are days when there's things that happen when, it can take me a whole day to get over it, because I've got feelings too. I'm not a robot. You don't want to be a robot. No. And I have to process my feelings just like everybody else. And it's okay. And I don't beat myself up. I let myself off the hook, and I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. If it's going to take me all day or even till tomorrow, it's okay.
No, that's great.
Because I have to process it.
Oh, you have to. And that's such a transparent, real outlook to have, right? And it's healthy. I mean, you if you beat yourself up and let those types of thoughts just consume you, it can become quite toxic. So I really appreciate you sharing that outlook with us and how you operate and handle circumstances, as well as coach others for that same type of mindset. Sandee, let's talk about your podcast, Happiness Solved. What's that all about? I'm sure it touches on some things on your book, but I'd love to hear more about the podcast.
Yeah. So, back in 2008, 9, and 10, I did a blog talk radio show and loved it. It was called Everything Mind, Body, and Spirit. You can still find it. The episodes are still there. Okay. And I was just interviewing people. And so I didn't want to do a podcast where I like to talk to other people like you do. So I wasn't going to get up there and just start preaching, that I'm not a preacher.
Yeah.
So I'm just interviewing people from all walks of life. Yeah. My very first guest was Paul Wharton, who's an Emmy-nominated TV personality. He was on MTV for years. He won it, and he was nominated for an Emmy with a Christmas show he did with Patti LaBelle. I've talked to other life coaches. I talked to a good friend of mine. It was a 2-part episode where she has a daughter who's immune compromised. She was a preemie. And she decided not to cook any outside food. She ended up, she just started doing outside food because she is vaccinated now. But it was like over 300 days that she cooked inside, and she ended up starting a business. Wow. And, you know, I've talked to other authors, but people who just have these stories that are just incredible. Yeah. And that I listen to them, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I know what I've been through, but like, wow, you know, so it's just been a really great, fun thing for me to talk to different people and just share the message that no matter what your daily struggles are, no matter what you've been through, you can get back to a place of peace and happiness.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that's all it's about. It's just my little way to give back to the community, to the world, hopefully someday. And, you know, my 12th episode will be released on Friday. I have 14 interviews coming up in the next month.
Really? Oh,
so
you're
I'm
busy.
really behind, but it's actually a good thing because I didn't record any episodes the month of April.
Okay.
And so the episode I recorded today isn't going to be released until June 18th. So do the math, right? Only one a week is released. Yep, so I'm going to take the whole summer off because I'm rolling out some online coaching programs, and I'm going to take the summer off. I'll work hard the month of May and then just take the summer off, and then I'll pick it back up in the fall and start, you know, doing more interviews because I've got like a whole backload of episodes to release at this point. And my team that I pay a company that manages it for me. Sure. Just because it's just one more thing I can't do.
Yeah, no. I mean, you have a busy schedule, you know, and
but you know, it's great. I love it. I just love it. So
isn't that fun though? I mean, having great conversations with people from all walks of life, from all over the world, and you hear these different stories, you know, and to me, it's exhilarating, you know. I mean, I don't want to downplay, you know, any traumatic experiences any of my guests have had on the show, but you know, I'm just saying their story, their journey. We all have a story. We all have a journey, right? But just in how they came to who they are now from where they were, you know, it makes them extraordinary. It does. Yeah. And I'm very honored to be able to associate and chat with, you know, extraordinary people such as yourself. So no, absolutely. I understand where you're coming from as far as that Blog Talk Radio experience that you had. So coming back as a podcast and the message behind your podcast, Happiness Solved, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm also like, just on Instagram, you meet so many people, and I'm interviewing on Saturday 5 college students that put together, it's called Peer Space. And so it's all about spreading positive words for college students and this and that. I don't even know where they put it this way. They're 10 and a half hours the time zone difference is 10 and a half. So they're getting up at 1:30 in the morning to record the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I don't even know where they're located. I mean, 10 and a half hours. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see.
But I mean, I'm talking to people from all over the world, and it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, you know, and it is cool. I mean, you know, every now and then I have to adjust my time to when I have the show, but to me, that's just part of the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. So I want to ask you, Sandee, what defines Sandee?
So what defines me is my never-ending drive to help other people. Yeah, that's been my goal for 30 years now, since I gave up using drugs. It's been all about serving others. I want to be a philanthropist, but to do that, you got to have a lot of money, and I don't. So, you know, I do what I can to give back. But it's just about, you know, I've been through hell and back a couple of times. I mean, there's more to my story than we even touched on today. Right. And I have a big story that involves my son, which is just very tragic. So it's just, I just want other people to know that, you know, it's possible. You know, it really is. Life's too short. Life's too short to live in misery. You know, we've got one shot. Like, this is it.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
This is my shot at being Sandee. Maybe, who knows? We don't know if we're going to come back as another person. We don't know, right?
No,
Nobody knows. But what I do know is this is my one shot at being me. This is it. This is all I got.
100%.
And I just want to be there and help other people and serve other people,
Beautiful. That is an awesome definition of Sandee Sgarlata. Man, I really, really appreciate that. As a matter of fact, service to others is one of the Road to Rediscovery's 4 cornerstones to growth. So I really appreciate you sharing your insights on that cornerstone, Thank you. Awesome. So, Sandee, how can the listeners connect with you, learn more about you, learn about your book, maybe get a copy, as well as your podcast?
Okay, so my book can be found on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in both soft, hard, and Kindle version. Nice. I have a YouTube channel, which is called Happiness Solved, and there's a great book trailer that just went up today on my book.
Nice.
So you can reach me at sandeesgarlata.com.
Okay.
On Facebook and Instagram, I am at Coach Sandee Sgarlata.
Gotcha.
And if you go to my website, feel free to, there's a place where you can send me a comment, send me a note, reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. Mm-hmm. I will respond to every message. It may not be immediate, but I will respond. I promise you that.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, we will definitely make sure to have direct links to your website, to the book on Amazon, as well as your social mediums on the episode show notes. So we'll make sure and have that for our listeners for sure. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Sandee, I've had such a joy chatting with you, and I really, really appreciate your insights that you've shared, on happiness, finding peace, self-accountability, which is very important, and opening yourself up to share with us a glimpse into who Sandee Sgarlata is, with, some of your background and some of the pain that you've gone through. So I truly, truly appreciate your time in sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful to you for this opportunity.
No, absolutely. We reciprocate. I am grateful for you taking time to chat with us. So, Sandee, we're going to now go into a segment I like to call 3 for the Road. And in 3 for the Road, I ask my guests questions. There are three random yet thought-provoking questions that I encourage and challenge them to answer in 5 words or less for each question. So what do you think? You think you might be up for it?
Sure.
All right, fantastic.
I'll give it my
best. It's just a fun way that we wrap up the show. And with that, I also want to let you know that these are not cookie cutter questions. I don't ask the same questions to every guest, okay? These are unique custom questions made just for you and from, my guests based on their background, experience, and their skill sets and knowledge, right? So their field. So let's go ahead and get started with question number 1, topping us off for 3 for the Road. Question 1. What does it mean to be happy?
In 5 words, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to use peace, serenity, gratitude, forgiveness, and service to others. Service.
Love it. Service. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's 5 words. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, Sandee, number 2. This is kind of like,
it's like my game show. I've never been on a game show, so this is really cool.
No. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you like it. I hope they're not too hard. I know, a little Jeopardy. Oh, I love it. So number 2, of course, you've heard of foods that pair well, right? Like cake and ice cream, or steak and red wine, or let's say grilled cheese and tomato soup, right? We're all familiar with those food pairings.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm a foodie, so I'm going to admit it,
Grilled cheese and tomato soup every day of the week, yes.
Oh, yes. It's absolutely delicious, right? So what foods would peace and happiness represent?
Well, for me, peace peace would be a slice of pepperoni pizza.
Ooh, that sounds so good. Pizza's
Now,
my favorite food. Uh-huh.
happiness would probably be a piece of chocolate cake and a glass of milk.
Nice.
Take the chocolate cake, you put it in a glass of milk, and you eat it with a spoon.
Oh,
that's my happiness.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's happiness. That's peace and happiness. I'm in lockstep with you because I love them both. All right. Wonderful. So, okay, number 3 to top us off, to finish us off for 3 for the road. If you could shout something from the top of the highest mountain as a message to everyone, what would it be?
Forgive for peace.
Love it. That's 3 words, which is beautiful. Three simple, short words that means so much and has such.
Forgive for peace. I had it on my license plate for about 10 years.
Oh, do you? Forgive
I
for
did.
peace.
Forgive for peace. I published a novel just real quick in 2009. My novel was called The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it was young adult fiction. The second book was finished in 2010 and my publisher went out of business. So I've combined the two. I'm going to finish it and release it hopefully in the next year. But the underlying theme in the book is forgive for peace.
Forgive for peace. I love it.
But it was the number 4.
Right.
And then give, and then for peace.
Peace. Okay. Gotcha. So I guess when you refer to it, or, the second part of this novel that you'll continue to work on, I mean, will it expound on that a little more, or be more elaborate on?
So the first part it's basically this young girl who meets her younger self when she's in a coma, and this little girl represents her higher self, and she is teaching her about forgiveness.
I gotcha.
And about God, and about just how she needs to show up in the world. The second book, which was never published, there's a little bit more drama, but there's still that person in there. At the end of the second book, one of the main characters attempts suicide.
Okay.
In the third book, and I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that character, I'm going to finish it because it's unfinished for me, and I don't like that. So we don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll work on it this summer when I'm not taping podcasts this summer. I can finish that novel and get that out in the world. So because it's a self-help book for teenagers, but they don't know it because it's told in a story.
I see. That's beautiful.
Because kids aren't going to read a self-help book.
No, they're not. You're right.
So it was actually, I won as a finalist in a young adult fiction in 2 different book awards.
Oh, really?
I was a finalist in 2 different book awards. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I need to finish it and get it out there. I need to make it more relevant because it was written in 2009 and all that. But yeah. So forgive for peace.
Well, that is awesome. Forgive for peace. And one other thing I just realized as you were explaining this in the book, it means so much because it's something you can apply to yourself, just as you mentioned in the storyline. You can forgive yourself for peace, so you can have that inner peace, right? Or it could be from one person to another, you forgiving someone for peace, or them forgiving you for peace, right? So my favorite saying is peace. It's not about being in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It's about being in the midst of those things and still being calm in your heart. So that's right.
If you are not calm in your heart, there is someone or yourself that you need to forgive. Forgiveness needs to take place if you're not feeling complete peace in your heart.
Got you.
And I will go to the grave thinking that way.
That makes 1,000% sense. Trust me, I mean, big time. So, and I've heard that before, and I couldn't agree more. It is the calm in your heart and in your mind in the midst of that turmoil and chaos, right?
I think because
Yeah.
I always say, and if you really, the only way to truly be calm all the time is if you go up on a mountain and you sit and you meditate 24 hours a day and you don't communicate with any other human being.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to be happy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's not real.
No, you're right. But I mean, unfortunately, we don't. I wish we had that luxury,
But that would not be fun. I love talking to people, and
yeah,
I talk to everybody. I walk my dog, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Talk to everybody, and
Well, you bring up a very good point, especially after what the world has gone through over the past 12, 13, 14 months, right?
In so many ways.
Yes.
It's just, one thing after another.
Yes, completely, and so there's a generation, okay, and it's the generation I'm from and you're from and our parents are from, where uh, we need that, and all humans do. I don't want to discount that, but um, we're used to thriving off that look and feel, human touch, uh, being in close quarters. I mean, people shoulder to shoulder on a subway, right? Or people, I don't know, at a happy hour, in a bar, on a Friday evening, stool to stool, shoulder to shoulder, and going to a ball game, going to an outdoor concert. We need that interaction. And even if we're not socializing with everyone, a lot of us draw energy from that proximity,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
I totally
sure.
get exactly what you're saying, just being social, saying hi to everyone, especially now. Hopefully we're getting closer to out of the woods, right?
I know.
So it feels like we're reconnecting, reacquainting, and so forth.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Sandee, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And please, let's stay in touch. I would love to have you back on the show maybe in about 6 or 8 months and give us an update on how things are going, how this next book is going for you, and any new updates in the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, my pleasure, for sure. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Libsyn, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you listen to your shows. But more importantly, if you have a loved one or you know of someone who appears to be at the end of their rope, going through some very, very dark days of despair, and they don't have any direction, nowhere to turn, I humbly ask if you could please share this show with them. Because on the road to rediscovery, we want people to understand two things. Number one, you're never alone. You're not alone. And number two, there is always, always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon.
The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.